Thank you for that great introduction and for being so open and honest in talking about how challenging things can be. My name is Zeinab Khawaja. I'm a health promoter in the Student Wellness Center. For those of you who might not know, the Student Wellness Center is on the second floor of the PGCLL building, so kind of across campus in, I don't know what direction, some direction. And we have medical doctors, we have counselors, we have drop-in groups, and then we have health promotion where we do training, education, workshops, and events to kind of help students learn more about wellness. So asking for help is really challenging for a lot of us. So I don't start by just talking about what services are available. That's like a little bit at the end. But I think I'm hopefully going to take you on a little bit of a journey to help you understand the importance of asking for help. So this is a screenshot from my Instagram account from when I graduated from my undergraduate degree. So I was in the Bachelor of Health Sciences program at McMaster, and we convocate alongside like our program, as well as like all the med students and like PhDs and all these like fancy people. And out of everyone, you know, I was chosen. I was very special and important, as you can tell. Wow, congrats, you did amazing, really incredible, way to go, girl. I'm so proud of you, future prime minister. People are really excited for me. So these are people I knew from high school who I hadn't seen in years. There's a girl that I matched with on Tinder and never talked to again. It was really an interesting bunch of people who were just really proud of me. So based on that knowledge, I'd like you all to make some assumptions about me as a person, or me academically, or me in my career. Anyone want to make an assumption about me? I won't be offended. Just say something. It's not a trick question. Any thoughts? Yeah. People have really high expectations of me. That is true. And it feels like my ability to meet them just decreased over time, even though the expectations feel like they're increasing over time. Like, oh, who decided that directionality? Yeah, right at the back. Assumption, hardworking. Yeah, I've never really wanted to work hard. I want to work soft and gentle. I want to rest. But the world is like, no, you shouldn't do that. That's called being lazy. I don't think being lazy exists, and I'll talk more about that later. Any other thoughts about me? At the back. I'm approachable. That one's true, not gonna lie. I like to think I'm very approachable. And I make a lot of effort to be approachable. And one of the things that helps me be approachable is that I'm honest and vulnerable. Yeah? Oh, that's a great answer. Yeah. Look at that. That's the ideal that we all want to strive towards. And that's great. I'm a human. I make assumptions about people, and I have to consciously be like, stop doing that. But yeah, I'll talk a little bit about my experience. When I talk to undergrads, I usually ask them to guess my lowest grade as well. You can do that if you want, but you don't have to. And I tell them my lowest grade, I think was in second year. It was a 6, I think, on the McMaster 12-point scale, which is like a C, or a D, or a C. I don't even know. I don't even remember. That was second year. That was almost 10 years ago now. But I know that I didn't have the highest GPA of the people who applied that year. I know this for a fact because I know some of my friends who applied who had higher GPAs than me and were very vocal about all the A's and A pluses that they were getting, right? So I knew that wasn't me. And I don't think I was selected because I had the highest grade. I was selected because when I applied and when I interviewed, I talked about my personal growth. I talked about my struggles and the people who I had allowed to help me get there. I was going through a lot personally in my life, with my family, before I even arrived in Canada to start in 2013 when I started. And so I was just like, what is happening? I did well enough, and I did well in many courses, but I think I did well, and the reason I finished my degree was because in third and fourth year when I allowed a lot of elective space, I chose courses that I knew had profs who were understanding and okay with extensions. And I asked for many of them, extensions. And I was fortunate that I was in a position where the people I knew were understanding and able to provide that where they could. And I chose courses that didn't have as many, like as much memorization because that was hard for me. But I did like, essay writing and conversations and problem solving, so I try to do more of that. And so, like people will think you succeeded, and like this is like a mark of success, I guess. Being valedictorian is fancy to people, and people assume that that's because I had the best grades, and that's what made me successful. And I can tell you that it's not, right? But we kind of all have these assumptions, right? Like I was really struggling. I almost didn't think I was going to finish my undergrad. I probably wouldn't have if it wasn't for a few profs who were very kind, and some friends who were very kind and understanding. And so that's a bit about me and my experiences. Since then, I started an MSW this past year, but I decided it wasn't for me. The institution wasn't for me. It was UFT. I don't know if you've been there, but it's not a fun place to be sometimes. You all know. Maybe some of you did your undergrad there. But it wasn't for me. Even though I really thought I was going to enjoy the program, it didn't align with my values, and it wasn't for me. And one of the best things I did for my mental health was quit that program and not work at the full-time at the same time I was a student full-time. And that was something that was huge for my mental health. And then deciding, what do I actually want to do with my space and my time, right? But again, people will assume that, oh, you would breeze through your MSW, because I'm like, yeah, I'm capable of reading and writing and doing things, but I wasn't in the mindset to do it. I had a really difficult year last year when I had to do that. So those are just some of my experiences. What are your thoughts and feelings after hearing me share some of those experiences? Again, not a trick question. There's no right or wrong answers. Yeah, thank you.
I'm happy for you. I'm also like a little jealous because I don't think I could do that.
That's fair.
And that's stubborn.
That's fair.
Accepting that you're better than me.
No, not better than me. There's just an immense amount of pressure, and I happen to have the right supports in my life who are like, hey, you deserve peace. You can try again later. Yeah, absolutely. So I'm glad you're happy for me. But again, speaking to my struggles in undergrad, any other thoughts or feelings anyone might be having? No, that's okay. Yeah, thank you.
It just seems like a more, I guess, normal experience than what we would expect from someone that recently validated.
Yeah, absolutely. So it surprises people. Sometimes people might have a sense of relief if you relate a little bit to some of the things I said, and maybe you still think I'm successful because I enjoy what I do in my life. It can be a sense of relief to be like, oh, I'm not the only one. People who struggle with, getting through their degree, people who struggle with asking for help, people who struggle can also be people I look up to, and can also be people I really respect, and can also be people I think are successful. So maybe that'll also apply to me, right? A lot of the times, we're struggling with something, whether it's, I don't know anything about chemical engineering, an experiment that isn't working right, or a deadline that you're not sure you can meet, or whatever it may be. There's the thing that is stressful, but oftentimes it's even more stressful because you think, I'm the only one, I'm a failure. I'm the only one who's not getting it. I'm the only one who hasn't picked up this technique. I should have picked it up faster. There's something wrong with me. Right? And I'm the only one who doesn't get it. I'm somehow uniquely worse than every single other person in this room. I'm the imposter. Everyone else belongs here but me, right? And so many people are laughing or agreeing because everyone thinks it's them, right? Everyone thinks I'm speaking directly to them, but I'm not. Lots of people will feel that way, but no one wants to let anyone else know they feel that way, so everyone will just think it's just me, right? And then you miss out on the opportunity of connecting with other people and being seen for who you really are. So it can kind of be a relief to realize, oh, it's not just me who doubts myself, or it's not just me who's struggling, it's not just me who needs help, it's not just me who feels a little lost or confused or overwhelmed or whatever it is you might be feeling. I promise you, it is, you have your unique experiences, but it's not just you who finds things difficult. So another question for anyone in the audience who'd like to share. What does asking for help mean to you? Yeah. Anything that comes to mind? If not, I will answer for you. That's okay too. Yeah? Self-awareness. Yeah, so it does require self-awareness to say, I need help and I'm going to ask for it. You have to be aware of the fact that you need help, as well as aware that help is an option, right? This is something I'm allowed to have help with, right? Sometimes you feel like I should be able to figure this out on my own. The word should is very heavy and dangerous, and it's filled with shame, which I'm going to talk about later. You know, if I could get rid of one word, it would be should. There's no time when you should be done. There's no time when you should be ready. There's no thing that you should be able to do. You either can or you can't, and if you can't, you ask for help. Yeah, any other thoughts? What does asking for help mean? Yeah, courage, absolutely. If asking for help is scary, sometimes, maybe you can agree with that. So when you do a scary thing, you need a lot of courage to do a scary thing. If it's very difficult for you, you need a lot of strength to do a difficult thing. So it takes a lot of strength and courage. Sometimes people think it means failure. I wasn't good enough to figure this out on my own, and I had to cave and break and ask for help, right? Some people see asking for help as like a breaking point, as a mark that I wasn't good enough on my own, right? And when you internalize that, even if you're someone who helps everyone else, but you can never ask for help yourself, which is what I have been for a large part of my life, you know, it can feel like I wasn't strong enough to get through this or to figure this out. I wasn't clever enough. I wasn't whatever enough, right? I wasn't enough, right? And that simply is not true. We all need help. We all need support. And the mere fact of being students means that you don't know stuff. Learners are meant to be learning new things, and if you haven't learned it, it's someone's job to help you continue learning that, right? That's kind of how education works in our system. But we kind of assume, oh, I should already know this. I should remember this thing I learned 5 years ago. Like, I don't know what I ate for lunch yesterday. So we put a lot of pressure with what I should be able to do on my own. And when you have that should, it kind of shuts you down a little bit. So it takes strength. It takes courage. Let's reframe asking for help as this really brave, vulnerable thing. So I talked a lot about this already. But if anyone has anything to add, what makes asking for help difficult? Anyone have any thoughts on that? I kind of forgot about this slide and answered it already, but anyone have any other thoughts on what makes asking for help difficult? Yeah.
I'm in the sense that, like, sometimes you feel like you're so busy you don't even have time to ask people to help you.
Yeah, absolutely. You're like, oh, then I have to explain this to them, and I don't have time for that. Or I have to process my feelings about something, and I don't have time for that. I don't have time to be sad. I don't have time to acknowledge that I need help, because if I do, then I won't get up again. You know, there's a lot of different feelings. And yeah, when you're a student, especially a grad student, in a program like engineering, there is a lot of work to get done. There is a lot of pressure on you, right? And it's easy to feel like I don't have time. But if you also think about the situation of like when you're super overwhelmed and stressed, and maybe you haven't had enough sleep or food or human connection in the last little while, like you're genuinely already not performing at your hypothetical best, right? So maybe things are already taking more time than they need to anyway. And maybe, yes, there's an extra time in asking for help, but then maybe once the help is received, things will go along faster. Maybe, but you don't know. And I think it's so easy to think about like getting the work done is the priority, right? Rest is a reward. Rest is optional, right? Taking care of myself, that's a nice little privilege, a little treat. If I finish enough work, assignments, experimental stuff, I don't know. Whatever it is you have to do, right? But that's not true. Rest is not a reward. Rest is something you need. Rest is something your body physically needs all the time, every day. And when you don't give your body the rest, your body will just take it from you at a really inconvenient time probably, because it's gonna give up. It's gonna be like, I'm tired now, you're not gonna wake up for several hours, or whatever it's gonna do, or you'll fall sick, right? There's so many connections between poor mental health and physical ailments. Your body is literally more vulnerable, your immune system is literally not as strong when you are really overwhelmed and stressed and not getting enough rest and food, right? But we don't think about how that will impact us. You know, we think the best way to get through this fastest is to just power through it. And I'm like, perhaps we can imagine a different way. Whatever that way is for you to create, but we can think about a different way. So there are some dangerous stories that we can believe about ourselves, right? I am not good, or I'm not good enough. I'm not creative enough, intelligent enough, hardworking enough, whatever enough. I'm not worthy of acceptance, love, belonging. I'm not worthy of being in this program or this school. I'm not as good as everyone else around me. If people knew X about me, they would reject me or judge me or think I'm stupid or think whatever about me. And there might be other examples that you can think of, right? These are negative beliefs that a lot of us will hold about ourselves. And they're simply untrue. I'm telling you now. You're free. But if you think about it, right, it's really easy to believe them. And this kind of shuts us off from connection because we don't think we're worthy of it. Maybe we don't think we need it. Maybe we're scared that people will reject us, and rejection is really painful. You know, there's a difference between emotions of guilt and shame. And all those things I just described back there, those were shame, right? Because guilt is saying, oh, you know, this, I did or said something that I don't feel good about, or that didn't align with my values, or I did or said something that has caused a negative outcome, or has caused harm, right? Guilt is about what you did. I did a bad thing, whatever bad even means to you, right? Shame is about I am a bad person. It's about who you are, right? And that is paralyzing and debilitating because we feel like, well, this is just who I am. I'm just lazy. I'm just stupid. I'm just not a hard worker. I'm just fill in the blank, right? Whatever it is, this is just who I am and how I am, right? And that kind of keeps you stuck. The same parts of your brain, research has shown that the same parts of your brain will light up when you experience rejection, which induces shame, as when you experience like physical pain. So this is like a really visceral thing that your body is perceiving, right? And as humans, we're wired to avoid things that are painful. We're wired to avoid pain to protect ourselves. Why would you want to feel hurt, right? And so it's a totally natural response to lean away from the possibility of rejection, lean away from the possibility that someone will see you as unworthy, right? And it's shame that kind of keeps you stuck in that way, because when you think this is just how I am, there's no room to grow. This is just how I am and how I'll be forever. Whereas we're not stuck in any particular state, right? We're always growing. I'm different today than I was 2 weeks ago. I'm certainly different today than I was 10 years ago when I was like starting in my first year of undergrad. I'm an entirely different person. I'm still the same person. I still have a lot of similar values. I still look vaguely similar, just a bit older. But I'm also like very different. I've grown. I'm so much more patient and emotionally mature and self-aware. And that's because I put a lot of time and work on it, right? And if you think this is a behavior that I do that you can improve on that. Like any skill, you can get better with practice and time. Self-compassion is one of those things. You know, balance is one of those things. Any kind of experimental procedure is something that you can learn over time. But if you think I'm just bad at this, this is just how I am, where's that motivation to get better? And we feel stuck, right? So shame keeps us trapped. If there was one feeling that I'd be like, poof, and get rid of, it would be shame. And again, the word should is really deeply connected to shame. I really do believe that, right? So thinking about how often you're using the word should. I should have finished this by now. I should have started 2 weeks ago. There's a reason you didn't. Probably because you were tired. And that's okay. It's called being a human being, right? And when you move away from the shame and the should, you can be curious about why didn't I do that? Or why am I struggling with this? There's probably a reason. Even if it doesn't seem rational or if you can't understand it, give yourself the benefit of the doubt. Probably I have a reason. And it's probably because being a student's really tiring. Any thoughts, comments, or questions so far? This is a lot. Cool. We're feeling, all right, I'm going to keep going. So Brené Brown, who I love, a lot of this work is based on her. She has a TED Talk that's amazing, The Power of Vulnerability. Low-key changed my life a little bit. And she says the definition of vulnerability is uncertainty, risk, and emotional exposure. And I'll say that anytime you can be hurt, physically or emotionally or however, you're vulnerable, right? And asking for help is really, really vulnerable. Because someone could judge you and think, oh my God, why do you need help with this? Which would hurt. Or someone could say, I understand that you're struggling, but I can't help you. And that can feel hurtful too, right? So there's a possibility of being hurt. And so it's a big thing to have to overcome and navigate, right? And I think it was like some random social media quote that I saw that really stuck with me that said, vulnerability will no longer hurt you or scare you Vulnerability will no longer scare you when, despite having the fear of being hurt, your trust in your ability to heal is stronger. So my ability to get through it, my ability to survive, like I've faced rejection before. I've done difficult and scary things before. And we kind of build that trust within ourselves, which can take time, it can take years. If we build that trust within ourselves, there's a lot less fear of being hurt, because you're like, it's gonna suck, I might not like it, it's not gonna feel good, maybe I'll cry about it, but then I'll get through it. And then I'll try something else, right? And that's the mindset that I'm hoping to cultivate in my own life. And I try to encourage others to cultivate that if they want to as well. So why be vulnerable? Even though it is scary. This is a rhetorical question, unless someone would like to offer an answer. Anyone have any thoughts? It's okay, you guys contributed a lot. I'm gonna monologue, it's all good. There's a lot of options. It can help foster a deeper sense of connection and meaning in our various relationships and communities. So within romantic relationships, within friendships, within peer-to-peer relationships, if we're vulnerable and honest, we actually get to know a person and not some version of you that you think is acceptable, right? In order to feel accepted for who we are, in order to feel connected, we have to let people see who we are and not who we want to be or who we wish we were or who we think they want us to be, if that makes sense, you know? And then when we are imperfect, when I say that I make mistakes and I'm doing okay, I still like myself for the most part, it gives other people permission to also be vulnerable and imperfect and make mistakes, which ultimately makes everyone less alone, because you don't feel like, oh, it's just me who makes mistakes. No, if we live in a world where everyone could make mistakes and learn from them and that could just be chill, no, people wouldn't feel as alone maybe. And every time I do this talk, I give at least a few students permission to feel a little less, to be a little more imperfect and to be a little more vulnerable. And people will come to me like years later and be like, hey, I remember that talk. And I'm like, wow, I remember nothing from when I was a student, so that's great. And they say like, oh, I told this other person about it, or I did this after that, and I was vulnerable in this way. Or even if they just come up to me and they ask for my email address because they want to learn more, or they want to talk to somebody, like, that's vulnerable. They'll do that right in the workshop. And I'm like, great, look at you doing that. Vulnerability can give us hope. If it's not just me feeling this way, maybe things are okay, maybe I'm not totally screwed, maybe my life isn't ruined, maybe I can figure something out, maybe someone can help me. And I find that you'll get more out of your overall university experience if you can try not to hold yourself to an impossible standard. And can you give yourself room to be human and room to be helped? And give other people that same luxury. And again, we're not always in environments where that's supported. You may have a supervisor, instructor, someone who's not super supportive of this very kind and gentle mindset. And that's really unfortunate, and that's things that we have to kind of work through. But how can you work on being kinder to yourself? And who can you find that is an ally and can help you learn to be kinder to yourself? So, how might one initiate vulnerability? It can look like a lot of different things. I find that everyone loves the theory, no one knows how to do it. So here's just some very simple examples. I always say start with trying to be honest with yourself, right? Try to be authentic. What am I actually feeling right now? Whether it's just reflecting, journaling. I'm a big fan of pulling out a feelings wheel. If you haven't heard about that, it's just a wheel with different words for feelings on categories. I ask my friends to do it. Sometimes they make me do it, which is really annoying. My keychain right now is like a mini feelings wheel. It doesn't have enough words on it, but it's effective in a pinch. But pull it up, journal, reflect, talk to someone, do whatever you gotta do. Be like, what am I feeling? I'm scared. I'm scared I'm not gonna finish this in time. I'm scared I'm gonna get scolded by someone or like told off or reprimanded for not doing something well. I'm scared I'm not good enough, or I'm exhausted. Whatever it might be, think about how you're feeling and try and be okay with feeling it. Yeah, I'm exhausted and that's okay. I'm really scared and that's okay. Practice just adding and that's okay to the end of whatever you're feeling and see what that does for you. And so next is to take what I like to call a tolerable risk. So risks are scary. And you don't need to jump into the deep end of like, I need to share my deepest, darkest traumas with a stranger like tomorrow. Like you can do that if you can do that. But just something simple, right? Something you might not usually say to someone. and initiate. Someone has to initiate, right? If you're sitting in a room full of everyone who's terrified of initiating, but everyone is a little bit lonely, someone has to be like, hey, do you want to do something? People might say no, or they might say yes. And then you can remind yourself that you can handle potential negative situations, like I said before. I've done this before. I can work on it, I can learn, I can grow, it's okay. People not responding well doesn't mean I didn't deserve a good response. That's more about them than it was about me. It's hard to embrace that mentality because it feels bad. But kind of working on that confidence. And so practicing in whatever feels the safest environment, whatever feels like the most tolerable risk, right? You don't start with, you don't start with the scariest situations for asking for help. Start with the literal easiest situations. The places where you're most likely to receive help. And that you might already know this is the safest human that I have in my life. I'm just gonna try and say something I don't usually say to them. Figure it out. Whatever feels to you personally like a risk that's a little scary, but like not terrifying. And find where that zone is and just try. Practice it. Like any other muscle, any other skill, it will get stronger over time. So things you can say like, hey, after this meeting, I'm gonna go grab lunch. Would anyone like to come with me? People might say no, but either way, you were gonna eat alone. Maybe someone will join you now. I don't know what would help right now, but I think maybe just some company would be nice. Hey, did you understand X? I don't think I get it. Could you show me, could you help me figure this out? I don't really know how to talk about this without being awkward, but I'm trying to be more honest, and lately I've really been feeling whatever. These are just ways. You can do anything. Whatever works for you. For me, in undergrad, I used to like journal randomly on pieces of paper, and then I would just slip it under my roommate's door and be like, hey, read this. Do not talk to me about it, but just read it. And it just helped me to know that she knew certain things that I was feeling and going through. And then eventually, I don't even know how long later we would talk about it. Right? So that's what I felt capable of doing at the time. And that worked. And now you can't get me to stop talking about my feelings. But that was where I was at like 8 years ago or whatever it was. So whatever you need to do, whatever is tolerable for you, even when you feel like you don't deserve it, that's usually when you need it the most. And so initiate vulnerability in whatever ways feels tolerable for you. And then how would you want someone to respond to you? That's the big question, right? We want a good response so that we feel safe to keep being more and more vulnerable. Validation is like the baseline thing. Every situation is unique. These are just some baseline things. 2 things, if you remember nothing else. Validation and identifying strengths. You don't suck. Like that's what that is. Validation is literally just how you're feeling is understandable. I use the word understandable so much. I do not understand it maybe, but it is capable of being understood because you're a human. And your feelings are understandable, you know? So yeah, it's understandable to be scared about X. It makes sense to be worried about that. There's been so much pressure on you lately. Gosh, that sounds exhausting. It makes sense you feel so tired all the time. Yeah, you deserve to feel supported on this. Deserve is such a powerful word for people to hear. Hey, you deserve help. You deserve to feel better on a just daily basis in life. You deserve to be able to laugh and have joy. What a concept. And then identifying strengths, like, hey, I know this is scary, you can do scary things. You know, you've done scary things before. Whenever you're ready, you can do. I can see how much you care about this, right? When we worry about things, when we're anxious about things, it's because we care. We don't worry about things we don't care about. If we're not invested in the outcome, we don't care, we don't worry. We're just like, whatever happens, happens, right? But if we worry, we care, and I can see how much you care. Sometimes people will say, I don't want to burden my friends, and I'm like, I can see how much you care about your friends. Probably they also care about you. And then kind of going in that direction. It's clear that you're trying really hard and doing the best you can. I really do believe everyone in this world is doing the best they can. Everyone's best looks different, and my best looks different every single day. Some days my best is doing a bunch of workshops. Some days my best is taking a shower, and that's about it. Or like watching a bunch of Netflix, playing my video games, doing whatever I like to do. Barely getting out of bed till like 1 p.m. on a Sunday. Like whatever my best is, it looks different every day. And kind of holding space for that. So the last little bit of this, who can you go to when you are struggling? And so, you know, I like to tell people that like, you know, your current struggles, your self-esteems, the areas where you think you aren't good enough or worthy enough. You know, we didn't get our current level of self-esteem in isolation, right? Other people helped contribute to our lack thereof, right? It might have been family members, it might have been teachers, peers, society, media, whatever, right? But like our current worldview and view of ourselves, it wasn't created in an isolation on an island, right? Society and like, lots of other people help get us there. And so if we want to have a more positive self-view, if I want to feel better about myself, if I want to change that, I can't do that on my own, right? I can't counter 20, 30, however many years of all this noise just on my own in like 30 minutes in one lecture. No, right? It takes a long time, just like all the other stuff took a long time, and it takes a lot of people, a lot of positive messaging, a lot of support. We aren't able to get to like a healing or growth place on our own. Like you can grow on your own, absolutely you can do that, but like we go further when we go together, right? So recognizing that like that's so crucial, right? That community is so crucial. And that's so much of what we've lost in Western society, and that's what I'm trying to get back in my life. So who can you go to when you're struggling? I always start with friends or family, whoever that might be for you. Classmates, upper year students in your program or lab, your prof or supervisor or someone else on your committee, question mark, that's a word. Faculty advisors, I think you might have those. Student accessibility services, if you believe you are disabled or have a disability, or neurodivergent. School of Graduate Studies, they have programming and supports there as well. And the Student Wellness Center, which is, again, where I work, where we have counseling and mental health services and groups that I run, or that other people run as well. I don't run all the groups. In particular, I like to give a shout out to Grad Chats, which is a drop-in group for grad students that I think runs on Wednesday evenings for an hour. It's co-facilitated by one of our counselors as well as a grad student volunteer. It's just a space to talk about grad school being stressful. There's a theme, but you can kind of talk about whatever. And then I also run a virtual group called Stress Less, Tuesday afternoons at 3:30, which you can email me for the link for. And again, we just talk about whatever's stressing us out. And I help people be kinder to themselves and regulate their nervous systems to reach a space of calm and safety in your body so that you can work through your mind. So lots of cool services available. There's no wrong person to go to for help. Actually, maybe there is in your life. I take that back. I don't know you. But it's just about trying and trusting yourself and who you feel safest with, right? You get to decide who that is and set yourself up for success. If this vulnerability is new for you, you know, like if you're learning a new skill, you don't start with maybe don't start with the hardest thing of it. Start with the easiest little bite-sized piece. So if we have time, I don't know what time we're at. Yeah, we have time. I'm gonna say take the next few minutes and just talk to someone beside you, ideally someone you don't already know, but if it is, that's fine too. And just share something you wouldn't normally share. Again, tolerable risk, please do not go into details of your parental trauma. That's not what this space is for, that's gonna be like really heavy. But just something that maybe you wouldn't normally share with someone sitting beside you in class. So just take like 2-3 minutes, just try your best. You can move around if you want to find someone else, do what you gotta do. And try to be receptive. Talk about something.